This is the Independent Dealer Podcast. Education by dealers for dealers. Now, here are your hosts, Luke Godwin and Jeff Watson.
Hello, and welcome to the Independent Dealer Podcast, brought to you by Buckeye Dealership Consulting. Luke, how was your first quarter?
It's a different first quarter for us, Jeff. But I would call it a success. We ended up selling maybe 50 cars or so in the first quarter, which comparably we typically do 150 or close to 200. So a lot less aggravation, a lot less stress, and 95% of those were retail or outside lenders, cash, and so it's a totally different ballgame that we figured out. I would call it success. The portfolio is coming down, but not as fast as I thought it would come down. Payments are coming in like they're supposed to. Not as big of a payment bump that we typically get during tax time. And I don't know, maybe other people felt that or not. But we never saw the huge payoffs that typically happen. We did see some, nothing crazy, but now we've started doing the service department, trying to build the customer pay side really up in the service department. And yesterday I worked the phones in the service department all day. We've partnered with a strictly service department advertising firm, and good night. I mean, the phone rang off the hook for people.
And this is just specifically, hey, get your car serviced here at Godwin Motors, and they run Facebook ads and Google ads, and it seems to
be mostly Google ads. And I'm telling you, myself, I answered and quoted over 20 repairs yesterday.
Wow.
And that's not counting our other service advisor who probably did the same amount.
Yeah.
And we got in maybe 7 of those yesterday to get their cars done. And I mean, like, it is mind-blowing.
The demand for service. It's not mine. It's obvious. We know it. If you guys are doing outside repair work at your shop, or if you're sending your cars out, say you're an outsourced type buy here, pay here, or retail location, you don't have your own service center, that at least in my town, every single repair shop is booked out the door and has been for 10 years.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it's crazy the way this advertising firm can make the phones ring like they do for service work. But I've never seen an advertising firm make the phones ring like this for car sales.
Yeah. I mean, it's a much more competitive area, I think. Yeah. I just think the demand for service is so overwhelming that if they can get someone to pick up the phone and they think they can get their car in within 24 hours, you are going to land that sale, right? They're going to come to you. Because if you go anywhere else, you're like 2 weeks out, and people just can't do that with their cars, right? So, being responsible,
especially in the South when it's this time of the year and it's supposed to be 90 on Friday, and the pollen's ripping. If somebody's AC is not working, they want it fixed right now. Or somebody's windows aren't rolling up or down, they want it fixed right now. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's great. What is going to be really interesting today, and this is kind of our topic of the day, is what is going to be announced from the White House at 4:00. I guess technically that would be yesterday when this airs, but today being Wednesday, it's coming out tonight. We're going to know exactly where these tariff threats really land. Yeah. And that is going to play into all of this, right? It's going to play into affordability, from cars new, which pushes into used, which pushes into parts, which pushes into repairs, which pushes into customers keeping their cars longer, which means now we have even more service demand. It's really going to be interesting how deep these tariffs go, how broad they go, and the duration.
Yeah. I was talking to my sales manager a couple of days ago, and I said, I think there's already been a pop in used car prices because of just the threat of tariff, right? On the higher end used cars, and doing retail now, where our numbers are a little bit higher than it was in buy here, pay here. And you've seen maybe $1,000 jump or $1,500 jump, but I said we can't just run out and buy these because you don't know if the books are going to translate. And
Yep.
also with administration, I'm a Trump supporter. Um, you don't know if this is going to last more than 3 days. And so
Yeah.
if you go and load up today on this market, what does it leave you 2 weeks from now when all this is resolved? I mean, it's a moving target like I've never seen.
Yeah. And that's why we say this, obviously we're recording this about 24 hours early from really having clarity on what these are going to be. So there is a bit of hysteria around this. And I think that's seen from all the new car stores across the country. I think they all saw kind of record demand over the
Yeah.
weekend, over this past week, of people just saying, hey, I was going to wait 2 to 3 months. You know what? I'm not going to gamble. I'm going to jump in now. I'm going to buy that new car now and just pull the trigger because who knows what it's going to look like, a month from now, 2 months from now. I might as well just
Yeah.
do it. So that's been all the antidote, is that it is pushing people into that market.
Which could be helpful for our industry, because if you've got that many more people buying sooner, they're trading their cars, right?
Mm.
And so that puts more inventory for used out there because they have to take it to the auction.
They
Um,
don't. Well,
they
I think that's
don't,
part of
they
the issue
don't,
too,
they
because I think a
don't, but
lot
they
of these new
will.
car stores are holding on to stuff they wouldn't have held on to
Uh,
because
uh,
they don't know what they're going to get. They don't know if they're going to buy more new,
that could be
if they're going to
temporary.
turn their mix more to used. Because I mean, even like I was just talking to a dealer buddy this morning here in town, and I think he sells like 5 to 1 used to new. So
Yeah, but
a lot of new cars.
that's not a Toyota store, and that's a Mitsubishi store or a Nissan store
No,
or
no, no. He has all of them. They've got, I think, 10 or 12 brands. And
that's
I
interesting.
think a new car store is really just a front to be a mega used car store, right? I mean, they make a lot of money on those used, and if they don't know what their new is gonna look like in 2 to 3 months, or they think they're gonna be priced even higher, then the consumer just looks for the value and says, hey, okay, cool. Instead of buying new, I'm gonna buy 1 or 2 year new used, and because it's more affordable. I think it's just the same thing as in those COVID days. It just pushes everything up the spectrum. It
Yeah,
pushes
and I
everything.
Yeah, and I missed the marketing COVID. I was probably, what I'm saying now when it comes to, yeah, prices might be affected. How long is it going to last? I didn't think it was going to last very long in COVID, and I honestly don't think it's going to last very long now. I think it's going to be resolved fairly quickly on cars from Canada and Mexico. I think that's going to be resolved pretty quickly, and we don't even bring cars in from China. So, parts from China is going to create a problem. I think that is the biggest problem to be concerned about, if I
Yeah.
had to guess.
Yeah, and again, like you said, there's the carve outs, and the administration talks about the 4 buckets of cars, right? There's the produced, manufactured, assembled here with mostly U.S. parts. There's assembled here with mostly foreign parts. Then there's the, you know, assembled outside the U.S. with a mixture of parts, and then there's the manufactured and assembled completely outside the U.S., right? Like the
Yeah.
Jaguars, the Mercedes, those types of ones that are brought in, mostly Highline stuff. So you've got these different buckets, and we don't know how the mix is going to land. We don't know if USMCA parts up to a certain percentage is going to be, you know, exempt from any kind of a tariff. So a lot of that clarity is going to come in later today, hopefully, and it'll take days and weeks to really pan out who's going to pass that along. Because here's the deal: just because you put a 25% tariff on a Volkswagen 3 Series that's brought in, it doesn't mean the Volkswagen has to pass that 25% on that make, right?
Right.
They've got a
Right.
lot of options. They can eat some of it, they can spread it out amongst other models. So the OEMs are also fighting an affordability issue and a market share issue. They don't want to be the ones that have to jack the price up on their midsize sedan and be
Yep.
competitive with now they're way overpriced compared to the alternative. So I think some of those guys are looking to wait and see what the other OEMs do before they make a move on any pricing strategies, but some of them may just eat it.
And some of them have a ton of inventory already built sitting in the U.S., which people aren't necessarily
Yeah.
thinking about. And so, you, you know, if the tariffs brought forward a bunch of buyers, then we get through this fairly quickly. I mean, I honestly, I don't see how this could last more than a month or two. I don't. But,
What
I've
do
been
you mean,
wrong.
the actual tariff itself or the sticker shock or what?
Both. I don't think the tariff will last all that long.
You think it's
Especially Mexico, Canada. I don't think that's going to last very long.
Yeah, I think the Mexico Canada thing could be, if you're USMCA compliant, I think they're going to kick that stuff out maybe.
Yeah,
Now, as far as the final assembly being outside, that's an interesting question of whether they're going to exempt those manufacturers in Canada and Mexico that are predominantly made with parts from Canada and Mexico, if those can get in, and is it just going to be a straight reciprocal, right? Like, hey, if we send stuff to Mexico, you hit us with, 10 or 11%, we're going to hit you with the same,
yeah.
right? Which again, you look at those, why do we bring cars in from Canada? Why are we importing all these Canadian cars? They're cheaper. Why are they cheaper?
Because the dollar to Canadian is
Yeah.
different.
So you're bringing these cars in, we don't export there, Well, if we try to put stuff into Canada, those get hit with the tariff going into
That's right.
Canada. So the
Yeah.
reciprocal side of it makes a lot of sense. Now, if you're just playing a game of chicken to see who can keep these tariffs on longer, to
Well,
try
we
to
can't. Well, we're the biggest rooster around, so we can do it. But does it make sense? I'm a free trade guy. I think trade should be free everywhere.
yeah.
Um,
So it's not
but
fair. They're doing it to us. We can't send stuff over to China or
right,
Europe without a huge
yeah,
tariff.
yeah. If you're going to do it to us, we're going to do it back to you. I think it's totally fine. But you also got to think of, do we really want to make the 1 cent widget in the U.S.? I don't think so. Because number one, we don't have enough workers yet. So, for what we have. So, there's all kind of political ways to go with this. And I don't understand most of them, honestly. I just know that parts mostly come from China. And that's going to really, those prices, tires and just parts, I think are going to be astronomical.
Well, you say astronomical, you say 25%.
Well, parts have already gone up an astronomical amount since 2020.
Yeah. And is that,
And
you talk about inflation, you talk about supply and demand, you talk about cost of everything, right? Energy
yeah,
cost, all those things.
when
That's,
when you're quoting like yesterday, when you're quoting a window regulator that's $500,
well,
for the repair on a on a all
on a big
18
box.
on an 18-year-old car.
On a what?
I'm
A McLaren, a Jaguar? What did you quote that on?
an Audi A4.
Oh, okay.
But still, I mean, that's an Audi A4. That's not a really high-end car. But when it's $500 for an 18-year-old window regulator, I mean,
Well, that's because your labor rate's $400 an hour.
well, it's not 400 an hour. But it's just like you're like, holy cow, like, but the people will pay it because it's cheaper to fix that, '08 Audi A4 with 90,000 miles than it is to go buy a new Audi A4 because a new Audi A4 is 60 grand.
Yeah.
So I don't, I don't know. I know that new car prices and payments are at the top. They can't, I mean, the consumer can't handle much more. So
Yeah. Technically, they've come down a little bit since 2022.
technically, but we're still talking
Right.
about $800 a month almost in car payment for a new car, average car payment. I mean,
Yeah, and we're like
that's
what,
really high.
500 for a used, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think 560 or 580, and I can tell you this, buy here, pay here customers, once you start pressing over that 5 to 550 range, it's a real problem. And um, and your charge-offs will go up dramatically. So I don't know. I think if you had to go up on buy here, pay here customers to $600, you're going to cut out 90% of your market because people just
Yeah.
can't afford it. People just can't afford it.
Yeah. I mean, again, if wages don't keep up or you don't move upstream in your market, then yeah, I mean, you do eliminate. I mean, it's the same thing as before. If I could still offer a $250 to $300 a month payment like I used to,
Oh man.
500 down, sure, I would have all the customers in the world. Um, Questionable if I would want those customers driving my
Yeah.
cars because obviously there's a point where you can be too much in the cash cars. Now, if those were quality cars, maybe that's a whole nother conversation, right? Because back in the day, that was a 160,000 mile car still. Now it's a 250,000 mile car to have a payment like that. And I don't even touch a $3,000 to $4,000 ACV anymore. So that, if I could sell that nicer car and it was a $3,000 or $4,000 ACV and it had 160,000 miles, then maybe that would be a home run for everybody, right? But again, not the reality we live in. What's interesting, and we'll talk about this a lot, I think, at Buy Here, Pay Here United down in Vegas in a couple weeks, which I'm really excited for, man. I don't know about you.
I get to come and play golf with you one day.
That's you can come up here, play golf. We're going to go down there. We're going to have a good time in Vegas. So hopefully you guys are registered. I think the early bird hotel stuff maybe ended today or tomorrow. So you may have missed the boat on the good hotel rate, but there's plenty of places to stay. Still a great deal. I'm sure they're going to sell you tickets still to the event if you want to get on their website and join us.
Yeah, I mean, it was like $199 a night. And honestly, that time of the year, Vegas isn't going to be that much more expensive. So if you missed out on the hotel deal, don't worry about it. Go ahead and get you a hotel room and register. And also because you're going to get to see Steve Levine in compliance. Compliance unleashes, and compliance is still a big deal when it comes to tariffs, because what if you have to up your price because everything up? Make sure you have everything together and not just charging people these junk fees or whatever. And tariffs are going to cause ripples across all of this, and we've got to stay on top and be regulated in everything else we do.
Yeah. I have so many interesting compliance stories from this week that I saw from, people pricing, the Tesla pricing with the, with or without the incentive. And I'm like, wait a minute, if that price reflects the incentive, then your retail price is over 25 grand. That doesn't qualify anyways. Like, and then the other one's like, this price is only available with qualifying trade-in. I'm like, wait a minute.
Well, what's a qualifying trade-in?
What's a qualifying trade-in? Like, that is 100% deceptive. Someone do that dealership right now.
I guarantee you, Steve Levine would not let that happen. He would edit your website and go, hey, buddy, this doesn't work.
Yeah, all my cars are $1 with qualifying trade-in. Right? And I'm going to undervalue your trade-in. Like, that is the most nonsensical disclaimer I've ever seen at the bottom of a description. And it just drives me crazy. The other thing I heard was a former OEM CEO. He said some of these new car guys, along with tariffs, maybe what they'll do is have their MSRP, but then they'll have an addendum with the tariff.
Yep.
So that it's easy to add and take off based on what that tariff's doing, based on the make and model and whatever. And it's like, okay, that's interesting. You would just addendum a tariff fee. Is that legal?
Is that legal? That's something to ask Steve Levine, because it does it. I mean, you're right.
It is a tax. It's not part of the price, right? Maybe if you're an OEM, you could argue.
I can tell you
import tax.
I can tell you what my staff, my state regulators would do.
They come after him?
Oh, they would come after you so hard. Well, on the you may be able to do that on the new car side. I don't know.
Because you're physically the one paying the tax to bring it in.
Yeah, well, the manufacturer is, not you. I think only the manufacturer could do that.
What about what about our buddy? We need to call what's his name that's importing from Canada. Dare, and just, hey man, that's a great idea. You're importing, you're actually paying a new import tax. Don't put it in the price of the car, put it as an addendum.
Well, Dare's also, a Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram dealer now too, so I'm sure he's got plenty to talk about there. Oh man.
So you were talking about Buy Here, Pay Here. What I would like to say, when you talked about payment to return and the payment to income ratio getting out of whack on a portfolio, right? Mm-hmm. What's so interesting to me is when you look at these large guys, right? Like the drive times and these people that have massive data samples to pull from. Mm-hmm. They know exactly how to turn the dial on each one of those pieces to get the optimal return, right? Because you might say, well, if my payment gets too high, I might price some people out of the market with these cars and they can't afford it. Well, really, it's the affordability issue. You got to look at what's my payment to income. Now, am I moving up the credit spectrum enough to reduce my charge-offs? Or have I just moved up the payment to income and now my charge-offs start to tick up, right? That it'd be so interesting if you had I don't know that guys like me have a large enough sample to kind of play that game and say, oh, well, if this month we go from 18% payment to income to 19% PTI, that static pool didn't charge off any worse.
I would love to have the data and a data interpreter for Drive Time or Carvana or CarMax or
Rider.
or Oak Motors or Blake. There's all like these really, really big buy here, pay here dealers because you could see what 1% does, right? I don't have enough historical data to do that. But I promise you they do. And I promise you they look at it.
Yeah.
What's
I think
interesting
that
is
sometimes I think we all have our own anecdotal evidence where we say, okay, this car, this make and model with this miles at this price point is a golden goose, right? Like this car will get paid for, it attracts the right customer. And in my tiny, tiny sample size of history, thinks that's the best car to sell, right? Might not be the same for you, might not be the same for someone else, but we kind of start honing in on, okay, I got to keep it at 500 a month on this car with this miles, and it's got a really good chance of paying me back.
Yep. Yeah, I would love to see that data. I'd love to have my hands on that data.
And I think a lot of guys like, our conversation with Robin last week at Blytzpay and all the data that they have, even from a payment processing standpoint, you look at that and you say, okay, the best time to run my payments are actually Thursday at 3:00, or Friday morning. And that changes maybe per customer based on how they're paid, based on some other factors. But there's like this optimal time, payday Friday at 5:00 because they unlocked their card and they know they're going to go down to the,
The grocery store.
Yeah. And so if I can hit them at 5:01 because it's a 5-minute drive for them to get there, that kind of data is just so interesting from an aggregate, like large macro down to a micro, like climate is so cool.
Yeah. Blytzpay, somebody we use every day. I'm actually get into the back end of Blytzpay now, learn how to do reporting and things like
How to
this.
log in.
How to log in. Yeah, how to log in. And I tell you, it's so easy to use. It's so easy to understand. I taught myself, and actually, I'm sure Blytzpay team. I mean, they like to talk to me, but when I start getting there and go, okay, well, hold on, this report can be built a lot more simpler, so I can do this inside QuickBooks. So I've been sending all these recommendations. They're gonna probably block me at some point. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I've done. Most of us have blocked your email.
Thanks.
It makes life so much easier.
Oh goodness.
Send me this data. I'm like, dude, it's 6:00 on a Friday afternoon. I'm not sitting in front of my computer. How am I going to send you?
Well, hold on. Let's be fair, Jeff. That was not 6:00 your time. That was 6:00 my time on a Friday afternoon.
It's 5:00 somewhere, bro.
It's 5:00 somewhere, and I'm in Mexico, and you're complaining that I'm asking for this data to try to make it better for the listeners of the Independent Dealer Podcast. And I'm always helping my fellow consulting, dealer, and I'm trying to help out, and you're sitting there complaining about it.
Yeah, well, it'd probably make it better if you just stayed in Mexico.
Thank you, Jeff.
I feel like you would come back a better guy. You were there, you were a happier fella.
Oh, thank you.
So speaking of staying happy, when you look at this model and now you step in more to the service side, which do you think is harder, running a repair shop or running a dealership buy here, pay here?
Oh man, they have a lot of similarities. Buy here, pay here is still probably one of the hardest businesses on the planet. And just because it has so many, aspects of it. The repair side is, okay, I don't have to go find a used part, right? And I don't have to remanufacture that part to sell it. All I have to do is call the parts store and they, or actually click 2 buttons and the part miraculously shows up and I've got a technician out back that knows exactly what to do to put it on.
So, and the customer either pays it or doesn't pay it.
Or doesn't pay it. It's not rocket science. The buy here, pay here side is just, it's 5 or 6 businesses rolled into one. It is difficult. Now there's a lot of money to be made, but it's difficult. And I think if you run the repair side properly, you might can make, a third of what you can make on the same size operation probably.
Interesting. I do find that is like it's a very enticing for me. I've looked at property in the area trying to say, hey, I need a standalone service center because mine just isn't big enough. And I'd love to open it up to the public. But man, the brain damage of having 3 times as many technicians, three times as many interactions with the public,
I think you can hire that
in conversation.
I think you can hire it because there's so many people that have worked at, Firestone or Goodyear or all these places that have been managers. I think there are people out there who do it. Large scale buy here, pay here, to find a manager that understands the business and can do it. For one, that manager is going to cost you $500,000 a year at any scale. And it's a very specific, skill set. And the service side, I don't think as specific skill set. And, technicians are the hardest thing.
Yeah.
That's the hardest part of it.
Yeah. So. And I think I start getting rose-colored glasses because I've got a really good shop set up right now. My technicians are great. Haven't had a lot of, knock on wood, a lot of drama with my current crew. So I start thinking like, oh, I could do this at 3 times the volume. We could open up a service center and take on, outside retail work. And I know the writing's on the wall. I see what's happening. I know that cars have got to run longer and we've got to repair them and people are holding on to them longer. And that side is not going away. Even if you go fully electric with all these cars, I'm still repairing Teslas every single day here. So it's there and it's going to be there, but man, like they talked about, is it worth it? Is it worth the hassle and headache? Yeah, interesting.
It's interesting. We'll see if this experiment works. If it works, I'll come open one with you out there in Utah.
Yeah. It's a great place to do it until it gets over 100 degrees, which we know in all areas. It's over 100, under 32. You don't want to be in the repair business. It's just brain damage. Everything's blowing up. Everything's melting down.
Dude, I tell you, within a month, everything's going to start running hot, and everybody's AC is going to break, and cars just aren't made to run over, when it's over 100 degrees outside.
Yeah, we're loaded up. That's one thing tariffs won't do. It'll cost you more, but it won't make you a better car. That's the issue we run into.
That's for sure.
Luke, I think we covered everything. Did we miss any advertisers?
Well, I think, just to remember that, your reinsurance is so important to what you do. And there's opportunities on the service side for reinsurance too, which we're getting into. But guys,
have you done that yet? Have you sold a retail customer an extended warranty?
Yes, I've done that in the past. I've not. We haven't shifted our focus to that right now, but it's definitely something we have the option to do. During check-in, we go, hey, do you have a warranty on your car? No, I don't have a warranty. Well, guess what? We can sell you a 24, 36,000 mile warranty, our service contract. So yeah, we have all that ability, but
would it cover the current repair?
Absolutely not.
Oh, that would be interesting. If you said, hey, your repairs $500, or why don't you just pay, $1,900 and get yourself an extended warranty, which will cover this repair. And you've baked it into the numbers already. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing that.
Not yet. Okay. Cool. All right, Luke. Talk to you next week.
See you, buddy.
Thank you for listening. Please leave us a review. We'll catch you in the next episode.